Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' Godbreaker at online booksellers today. The work of children's author Roald Dahl is being revised by the publisher Puffin. Now, according to the publisher Puffin, they are looking to hire sensitivity experts to remove language they deem offensive. And according to Puffin, they want to make the Roald Dahl works like Matilda, The Witches, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory politically correct. So what they're looking to do is remove language that describes characters as fat or ugly, or in the case of the Oompa Loompas in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, they are looking to make the characters gender neutral. Now, this is a very troubling trend as I see it, because as an author, what it looks like to me that Puffin is doing is they are looking to please social justice types who want to promote identity politics at the expense of the author's work, because when you change certain words as related to a story, what you are actually doing is changing the entire story. And when I take a critical examination of what Puffin is doing to Roald Dahl's work, it's looking to me like censorship. Now, the politically correct people say they are trying to make the books more sensitive to modern audiences, but when I look at their attempts to make things more appealing to so-called modern audiences, ironically, they are participating in the same type of censorship that was happening during the time many of these books were published. And the censorship doesn't go out here and make the work better. No, when you go out here and change an author's work, what you are doing is taking away from that author's message, because when you change certain characters to reflect modern viewpoints, what you are doing is taking away from what that author originally wrote. Now, it may offend some people today to hear that certain characters are overweight or certain characters are ugly. That may offend some people, but the author put that there for a reason, and they were looking to describe certain character traits that allowed you to imagine what that character looked like. And that character was made that way for a reason, so that the author could make a commentary about something going on, and it was important to that story. So when a editor comes out here and looks to revise that story, they are actually taking away from that story. And when you have people like so-called sensitivity experts calling themselves removing offensive language, that is a slippery slope as I see it as related to publishing, because this type of so-called sensitivity expert, once they start working on books by authors like Roald Dahl, it becomes a slippery slope, because what is considered to be so-called offensive is subjective. And what will happen is you'll have publishers going out here hiring sensitivity experts looking to go out here and remove language that they consider offensive from books like many classic authors, and even in going to religious texts like the Quran, the Bible, and the Jewish Talmud. So you'll have individuals who will be sitting there bringing their social justice and identity politics, saying, oh, this is so-called sexist, this is so-called racist, and again, it's all subjective to their opinion and their personal political beliefs, and that is a slippery slope that Puffin is on. They're out here looking to go out here and be the thought police on books, because when you go out here and call yourself changing an author's work, this is, again, basic censorship, because you are revising a writer's story, taking away from their original message and taking people away from what made that story what it is. Moreover, what you're doing is taking us out of history, because literature is meant to teach us, because it is a snapshot of a time, and it may offend some people to hear certain phrases, certain things. You might hear something that would be deemed racist today or sexist in the today, but this is a snapshot of what transpired during that time. This was what was considered the standard for that time, and that literature is meant to teach us about that time in history. And taking these books and rewriting them is taking away from the history lesson that we all could learn from that literature. Because when you have people looking to bring their political correctness and their identity politics into literature and looking to rewrite classic literature, again, this is even worse than a book burning. What you are doing is burning away the original message, erasing the original message of that story, taking away everything that the author made as related to their commentary. And it's a real insult, as I see it, with taking these books and giving them this politically correct so-called rewrite, because this rewrite is basically people looking to revise history and looking to erase what happened at that time. Because again, if a book is a snapshot of a time, what that book is telling us what went on at that time. And again, this is quite troubling, because these same individuals are the same kind of people who would go out here and take books based on slavery and then say, oh, that slavery didn't happen. So this is a dangerous, slippery slope as related to publishing. Now, as an author, again, I was deeply troubled when I heard about what was happening to Roald Dahl's books, because what was done to Roald Dahl's books could easily happen to my own books once I wound up leaving this earth and my work was out there. People could go out here and take one of my books and rewrite it to fit political correctness because they were offended by something. And again, that shows there's something wrong with people, because again, if they're so upset about what somebody wrote in a book, then you have a choice not to read that book. That was the choice that we were given by our Constitution, which is supposed to protect freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But where is the freedom of the press if the publisher is looking to pander to social justice types who don't even go out here and buy literature? No, many of the social justice types that they're pandering to in the hopes of making books less offensive, many of these people do not even read these books. They just run on their feelings based on what they deem to be offensive. And when they run on what they deem to be offensive, they take away from valuable lessons that readers would learn when they read these books. Now, back in 2009, when I was writing all about Maryland and revising The Temptation of John Haynes, and TV went digital, there were a lot of different shows that came on from different eras, like the 50s, the 60s, 40s, and even the 30s. And as I was sitting there watching these shows on channels like Decades and channels like Movies, I saw a lot of different movies that, they ran some Jungle Gym movies which featured some racist imagery. I saw some other movies that featured all sorts of sexist things, and I wasn't offended by any of that content. No, I saw it as a lesson that gave me a snapshot in history and made a powerful commentary of what was going on at the time. I really learned a lot from watching a lot of that media. And when you read old literature in its pure form, you learn a lot from that content. And again, this is what publishers want to deny people, because we've got a group of social justice types running the publishing industry. They're looking to go out here and virtue signal, and they're looking to go out here and rewrite books. And again, this is the type of stuff that is very dangerous, because it is a very slippery slope. And again, it's a very slippery slope because you're taking away what was in an author's story you're taking away what's in an author's message, and eventually you go from revising Roald Dahl's books to rewriting other people's books, and eventually start going out here and looking to rewrite religious texts like the Torahs, like the Talmud, like the Quran, like the Bible. And again, red flags for everyone, because if there's stuff that's offensive in a book, sometimes you need to learn what's there, and it can teach you something. And it's, again, a very dangerous sign of our times with this so-called political correctness and the so-called culture wars. What they're looking to do is take away from our culture, trying to teach political correctness to a new generation. And when you do these type of things with one writer, it starts to affect other writers who go out here and make these revisions. And again, what's really troubling is that Roald Dahl's estate went along with this because they valued royalties over the integrity of the story. The same thing happened with Dr. Seuss when they refused to publish several of his what they called more racist books. And again, the whole thing is you should allow the reader to make the choice, and the reader will make the choice of what they want to buy. It is not for people to go out here and force their identity politics on the reader, because the reader needs to be allowed to make that choice of what they want to see. Going out here and hiring sensitivity experts is the same thing as hiring, as I see it, a group of thought police to go out here and censor an author's work, going out here looking to sanitize that work, going out here looking to remove what they call offensive characters, like calling them fat or calling them ugly. I'm sorry, but that's a part of life. People are fat, people aren't attractive, and what is fat or unattractive is subjective to people's opinions, and you don't have a right to tell people not to write these kind of stories or write these kind of characters, because you can't go out here and sanitize characters to please people, because in the efforts to please people, you please no one, because the people who you're trying to please, again, the social justice types, they are moochers overall. They don't go to bookstores to go buy books. No, these are people who go out here looking to look at pirate books online, and they look to sit on somebody's Wi-Fi looking to complain to people. And as you go out here and sanitize your work, hoping to appeal to that generation, you're going to wind up with nothing but no sales, because this is what they mean by get woke, go broke. Again, looking to pander to these individuals, and again, destroying an author's work. And that is a thing that deeply troubles me, because what they do to Dr. Seuss and do to Roald Dahl, they can easily do to Sean James, they can easily do to religious texts. And again, it's a slippery slope as related to rewriting authors' works. And again, rewriting authors' works is something that is a very dangerous thing, to go out here and remove things, because when you remove things, you remove the heart of a story, you remove the soul of a story, because usually when writers go out here and we write a story, we put things in that story for a reason. For example, I have a character called The Block, and he's called The Block because he's 7 foot tall, he's 3 feet wide, he's 650 pounds. He's called The Block because he is basically a walking wall. And again, it's not about him being fat. It's about him being a man who is just of such great size that he's literally like a block, and you can't get him out of your way. Now, the people who are supposed to be the body positive types, they'll sit there and say, oh, you're making an obese character, and you're trying to say something bad about fat people. But I'm not trying to say anything bad about fat people, because I'm heavy myself, and I know what it is to be a block. Again, a human walking wall, a man of great size and just intimidating presence. That's what The Block is. And I have other characters where they have features that would be considered to be unattractive, like Eastine in her demon form. And again, This is here for a reason, just like Roald Dahl had with the witches having no hair. That's there for a reason. The writer is trying to make a statement about these characters, but that statement winds up getting suppressed because we've got a group of social justice types who are in their feelings, want people to be so-called sensitive, but the whole thing is that when a writer writes a story and they make a character a certain way, we are not trying to appeal to sensitivity because we're trying to prepare people for the real world. And in the real world, you're going to have to deal with a diversity of thought. You're going to have to deal with a diversity of ideas. You're going to have to be dealing with a diversity of different people, different opinions, different viewpoints. You're going to have to deal with a world where everybody isn't going to agree. No, you're going to be dealing with a diversity of thought. And that's what Roald Dahl was putting in his work, and many other writers like myself put in their work. We put in diversities of characters. And yes, this may offend some people to see certain characters act certain ways, but if we didn't do this, this wouldn't be protagonist or antagonist. There would be nothing there as related to making the story work. And when we have people rewriting books, this is again very dangerous, because when you have people rewriting work that another writer wrote, this is just, again, we're heading down a road to censorship, and we're heading down a really bad road that is reflected in books like 1984, where they talk about how everything is rewritten, or in books like Fahrenheit 451, and that's all due to a generation not understanding the power of the First Amendment and why it's important, because the First Amendment is supposed to be about protecting the speech you don't like. It's supposed to be about protecting the speech that people don't really want to hear. And when publishers don't understand the importance of the First Amendment, like Puffin doesn't, what they do is go out here looking to please people who basically want to control everyone through words. And the irony here is that they say that words matter, but it's clear to me that the publisher doesn't understand what that means, because a publisher like myself has to understand that when words matter, it's not about the words we don't do like, it's about the words we don't like. And we have to protect the works of writers we don't like, because I don't like Alice Walker's Color Purple, but I will protect her right to put that book out there so that people can see the misandry and the white supremacy in it, and learn about the misandry and white supremacy that this black feminist is presenting in her agenda, so that we know what our enemy is and what our enemy is up against. That I will go out here and support, because keeping this book in print shows us the messages that are out there. But when you erase things, what you're looking to do is control the narrative. And those who look to control the narrative, what they want to do is censor one author and then go out here and further censor other authors. And again, instead of us getting the message that the author originally put in their story, we get some sanitized political correctness that where nobody really learns anything, and we never learn that the world is filled with things that will offend us, but we have to learn why these people put these messages here, and we can learn from them. Again, it's all about learning, and that's what these books are all about. And when I look at what they're doing to Roald Dahl's work, it really makes me think that we need to really preserve our old physical media, because what people will do is look to rewrite stories, revise stories, and again, when you revise a story, you take away from people's ability to learn from their past and be able to apply lessons from the future. When you go out here and look to revise work, you take away from what people can learn, and again, the children are not going to get what they need from that book when you have these people talking about sensitivity experts, because sensitivity is not something that helps kids learn. No, kids only learn when they learn the hardness, when they learn the truth, And you have to tell kids the truth, because the world is filled with different people, different viewpoints, and some of those viewpoints, they may be offensive, but there's something that you can learn from what they're presenting. And again, when I look at what they're doing to Roald Dahl, again, it's quite troubling. It's troubling because we're not going to get a story as the writer originally intended. We're not going to get the messages that the writer originally put in their story. No, we're going to get a watered down story that is politically correct. And usually what's really ironic about those who promote political correctness is that they cannot see how sexist and racist they actually are, because many of these social justice types, as they're looking to sanitize old work to make it fit into modern day, don't see many of the messages they put in their own media. Like recently I saw with the British Vogue cover of Rihanna, while you're looking to erase Roald Dahl's so-called offensive media, you're going out here and creating equally offensive media where the black man is emasculated in a photo of British Vogue, and you've got many other images that look to emasculate black men or minimize masculinity, and those images are just as equally offensive as the images that people look at in the past. And that's where the so-called sensitivity experts just get it all twisted, because while they're looking to censor stuff from the past, they can't see that they're creating equally offensive stuff right now that will be scrutinized in the future by those who don't have a good understanding of what history is. Because those of us who understand history understand, yes, there are old media that are racist and sexist and politically incorrect, but that is a reflection of that time. And we don't really learn anything from the so-called sanitized media, because the sanitized media takes away the lessons we need to learn. They prevent us from seeing that snapshot of the times, because I could go back to the 1990s and look at a show like a Friends or a Frasier and see racism in those shows, because those shows had absolutely no black characters. And I could say that Friends is a racist show. I could say Frasier is a racist show. I could even say Seinfeld was a racist show. And that would be an argument that could be made under your political correctness, because it had no black people in it. And this, again, is why you don't revise stories. And because, again, the social justice types, they want to subjectively revise things that they feel are offensive, not understanding many much of the media they want to give passes to is just as equally so-called offensive. And again, what you're doing is taking away people's ability to see what the times were, taking away from people's ability to look at history. And again, this is a dangerous, slippery slope, because when you have a publisher who is not looking to protect free speech, a publisher not looking to preserve history, they are on a bad road, because people will not be able to enjoy and appreciate work for what it was made in the time that it was made, and they're not able to be able to take a look at that work from a critical perspective when they are older, and kids won't be able to enjoy it as it is. Again, it's all, when you start heading down that road to censorship, it takes work and it destroys it from what it was. And again, as an author, I find it, and a publisher, I just find this revision of Roald Dahl's work to be a very dangerous one, because when you erase people's words, you make sure that their words don't matter, and if their words don't matter, then we don't get to hear the message in their story. Now, if you want to pick up some of my stories on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books in the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, my sorority story The Thetas, and my romance novel A Recipe for Success, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos about writing and publishing, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. the man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today.